Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're jumping right back into the ancient mythic world of the Mahabharata. We are going to explore a story with literal cosmic stakes, breathtaking romance, and a heroine who actually has to outsmart the divine. We're looking at the Swayamvara of Damayanti. So if you're a fan of epic narratives where human willpower goes toe-to-toe with absolute divine authority, well, you are in for an incredible ride.
But right off the bat, I want you to picture this scenario. How exactly do you choose your true love when the gods themselves are actively trying to trick you? This is the central high-stakes dilemma our heroine, Damayanti, faces. It's the ultimate test. It's not just about picking the right partner from a massive crowd of mortals. It's about seeing straight through celestial illusions using nothing but the sheer force of human devotion. Let's see how she manages to solve this completely impossible puzzle.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the Royal Swayamvara. The setting here is a grand Swayamvara, that ancient practice where a royal woman chooses her husband from a gathering of eligible suitors. King Bhima has summoned the absolute greatest kings in the land for his daughter, Damayanti, into this magnificent amphitheater decorated with golden pillars. And the suitors who show up? Yeah, they aren't your average royalty. The text vividly describes them entering the hall like mighty lions entering the mountain wilds. Their arms are described as robust, resembling iron maces, and gracefully shaped like five-headed snakes. They're totally decked out in fragrant garlands and polished jewel-hung earrings. The whole assembly is basically compared to a cavern filled with tigers, their faces shining like stars in the firmament. These are literally the most imposing, powerful mortal men in existence, and they are all waiting for one woman.
And then the moment arrives. Damayanti enters the hall. The text tells us she possessed a beauteous face, and her very presence was a dazzling light that immediately stole the eyes and hearts of every single prince in the room. In fact, her entrance was so captivating that wherever the glances of these mighty kings fell upon her, their eyes were literally riveted right there. They couldn't even move their gaze if they tried. It's just a beautiful image of absolute awe.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 5 identical Nalas. Just as this grand ceremony gets underway, the tension suddenly skyrockets. The names of the monarchs are proudly proclaimed so Damayanti can make her choice. Now she is looking for one specific man, King Nala, the ruler of the Nishadas, the guy she has already set her heart on. But when she scans the crowd, she experiences a massive shock. She doesn't just see one Nala, no, she sees 5. 5 distinct people sitting there, all completely alike in appearance. There is absolutely zero difference in their form. At whomever she looks among this group of 5, she sees the exact same king of the Nishadas.
Imagine the absolute panic setting in right here. Damayanti realizes instantly what is happening. The gods have crashed her Swayamvara, and they're disguised perfectly as the man she loves. She asks herself this desperate question: how shall I distinguish the celestials and how discern the royal Nala? She's just a mortal woman completely trapped in a divine illusion. Doubt fills her mind, and she's overcome with grief because she knows, for sure, she cannot solve this puzzle with her eyes alone.
Moving on to Section 3, the mortal choice.
So what does she do? Well, first, she tries to rely on ancient wisdom. She racks her brain, recollecting all those old stories she heard from the aged about the secret marks or attributes of celestials. But as she stares at the 5 identical Nalas, she realizes the gods are cheating. None of those traditional mythological giveaways are there. They've perfectly replicated a mortal form on Earth. Realizing she's been totally outmatched visually, she pivots. She uses her own devotion as her ultimate weapon. She bows down, folds her trembling hands, and makes this incredible 4-part vow of absolute truth. First, she states she chose Nala purely, right from the very moment she first heard of him from the swans. Second, she declares she has never swerved from him in thought or word. Third, she acknowledges that the gods themselves actually destined him to be her lord. And finally, she swears that her entire vow is simply to pay him homage. She basically drops this flawless, logical, and spiritual argument. For the sake of that truth, let the gods reveal him to me. She begs the exalted guardians of the worlds to assume their proper forms.
All right, Section 4, how to spot a god.
Now what's really interesting about this part of the story is the turning point. The gods actually listen to these piteous words. They see her fixed resolve, her fervent love, and most importantly, the absolute purity of her heart. Deeply moved by her unwavering truth and affection, the gods decide to honor her adjuration.
They drop the perfect illusions and assume their respective celestial attributes. And wow, notice the incredible visual contrast this creates? This is exactly how you spot a god in ancient mythology. On one hand, the celestials are suddenly revealed as totally unmoistened by sweat. Their eyes are winkless, meaning they literally don't blink. Their floral garlands are unfading. They're completely unstained by dust, and they're floating, not even touching the ground. Now, on the other hand, look at the mortal King Nala. He is suddenly revealed by his sheer humanity. He's sweating, he has to blink his eyes, his garland is wilting, he's covered in the dust of the road, he's resting firmly on the ground, and, this is crucial, he casts a shadow. Damayanti finds her true love not by looking for perfection, but by looking for the beautiful, flawed, and sweaty reality of a mortal man.
Discerning the gods from the virtuous Nala, Damayanti finally makes her choice according to her truth. The text describes her as bashfully catching the hem of his garment and placing a floral wreath of exceeding grace right around his neck. The reaction in the amphitheater is immediate, and it is completely split. The mortal kings suddenly break out into these disappointed exclamations of, "Oh," and "Alas." But the gods and the great rishis watching, they cry out in wonder, "Excellent, excellent." They actually applaud the mortal king.
Nala's heart is just completely filled with gladness. He comforts the beauteous Damayanti with this incredible vow. "Since thou, O Blessed One, hast chosen a mortal in the presence of the celestials, know me for a husband even obedient to thy command." He promises that as long as life continues in his body, he will remain hers and hers alone. Damayanti pays him homage with similar words, permanently cementing a bond forged literally under the gaze of the heavens.
And finally, Section 5, Blessings and Righteous Rule.
So, the choice is made, but what happens with the gods? Well, it turns out the gods aren't angry at being rejected at all. In fact, after the happy pair mentally seeks their protection, the exalted guardians of the worlds are exceedingly pleased by Damayanti's devotion and Nala's virtue. So much so, they decide to bestow 8 specific boons. Let's explore these fascinating gifts. First up, Sakra grants Nala the ability to behold his godship in sacrifices and guarantees he's going to attain blessed regions in the afterlife. Next, Hutasana, who is also known as Agni, the fire god, gives Nala the power to summon his presence, meaning fire, whenever he wishes, along with regions as bright as himself. Then we have Yama, who grants a rather unique gift, a subtle taste in food alongside preeminence in virtue. And finally, the Lord of Waters grants Nala the ability to summon water whenever desired and gives him garlands of celestial fragrance. Every single deity gave him a pair of boons, rewarding their unshakable moral foundation with immense practical and spiritual power. After all this, the gods simply returned to heaven.
And this brings us right to the resolution of our epic tale. The disappointed kings head home, and high-souled King Bhima joyfully celebrates the wedding. Our timeline here cleanly shows their happily ever after. After staying a while, Nala brings his pearl of a woman back to his own city. The text says he ruled righteously, resembling the sun in glory, and giving his subjects great satisfaction. He celebrated the grand horse sacrifice and made abundant gifts. He sported with Damayanti in romantic woods like a very god, and eventually they had a son and a daughter, and interestingly, they were both named Indrasena. He ruled the earth abounding in wealth and absolute joy.
So the crucial point we take away from this incredible text isn't just about some magical wedding. It's about the fact that human truth, integrity, and pure devotion were powerful enough to force the cosmos itself to be revealed, which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. If the gods descended today, masking the truth with perfect illusions, would your devotion to the truth be strong enough to see through their disguises? It's a pretty profound question about the power of our own inner compass. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep questioning the illusions around you.